Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a brand new interview with one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on Google Play Music, iTunes, Stitcher, or on our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/thedirectorscut. And if you're enjoying The Director's Cut, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. We love hearing your feedback. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Werner Herzog's new thriller, Salt and Fire. The film follows a scientific delegation who, after being tasked by the UN with investigating an ecological disaster in South America, is kidnapped by the CEO of the corporation responsible for the problem. After one member is deliberately stranded with two blind boys in the middle of gigantic salt flats, she and her abductor must work together after a nearby supervolcano begins to show signs of an imminent eruption. In addition to Salt and Fire, Mr. Herzog's many credits include the feature films Agira, The Wrath of God, The Enigma of Caspar Hauser, Nosferatu the Vampire, Fitzcarraldo, Invincible, Rescue Dawn, and Queen of the Desert, the documentaries Into the Abyss, Cave of Forgotten Dreams, and Little Dieter Needs to Fly, and episodes of the television documentary series On Death Row. Mr. Herzog was nominated for the Academy Award for his 2009 documentary Encounters at the End of the World. He won the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Documentary for his 2005 feature, Grizzly Man. After a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Herzog spoke with fellow director Kevin Smith about filming Salt and Fire. During their conversation, Mr. Herzog discusses how he played with perspective in the film, his efficiency as a filmmaker, and the famous shoe-eating bet.
So when I fell in love with indie film, I started seeking it out, started going up to New York City to see films and stuff like that. Picking up every piece of indie film journalism you can get your hands on, which included Movie Maker magazine, Filmmaker magazine. But there was always legendary figures that rose to the top. People that you didn't even imagine yourself ever having a career in film. You just wanted to make a movie. And there were filmmakers that had gone before you that you looked at and said, my God, that's who I would want to be. That's how I would want to do it. And I first became exposed to the work of tonight's genius by virtue of course, Fitzcarraldo, which when I fell into independent film was one of the first 10 movies I think I watched. A smart person said you should watch that. So knowing that filmmaker's name, because boy, it really pops and stuff, it stands out. I remember hearing about a short film that a friend of mine who was into film, true cineast, was like, you have to track down this movie and see it. Again, we had no internet, so you couldn't just look it up. And he said, it's called Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, man, he made a fucking bet with someone once, and he lost it, and he had to eat a fucking shoe, and they shot it. And I was like, that's insanely metal. And they're like, of course it's metal. This is the guy that made Agira, Wrath of God. That's the most metal film ever made. So I've searched it out and found it. And it wasn't until, and it's wonderful if you've never seen it. It's bizarre. And it's also at its core, the story of a man who keeps his word. But the moving thing about it to me always was the reason he did it. If you don't know the story, Errol Morris, the documentarian, was always having great ideas and not really following through on them all the way. So Werner Herzog said, look, I'll bet you that you're not going to finish the Pet Cemetery documentary you're working on. If you do, I'll eat my shoe. And it was done as a kind of motivational technique, a challenge, throw down the gauntlet, but also motivational. Get off your ass, finish something. And it helped. Errol Morris finished the documentary. I think it was 1978. They premiered it, and then standing by his word, our speaker tonight sat down, publicly ate his shoe, cooked it up, and somebody shot it and whatnot. And he said before he ate it, I hope people going forward take from this a lesson, I'm paraphrasing, a lesson about finishing something. If you have an idea, chase it through, follow through all the way. That meant the world to me as a kid who just wanted to make a movie. You needed people to look up to, and somebody I absolutely looked up to and kind of based a career I didn't know I'd ever have on. As I sat there going like, one day I want to be like this guy. Because this person is an uncompromising filmmaker, does whatever the fuck he wants. The greatest filmmakers on the planet do the weirdest movies and just do whatever they want. And sometimes they're easy to follow, and sometimes we can't follow them into the places they go. But those are the filmmakers that thrilled me and made me want to go toward that world. Nothing safe, nothing like guaranteed, always an expression of oneself, the true work of an artist. And we just saw a piece of that work, a guy who's still doing it decades into a career. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the stage the genius Werner Herzog.
Thank you for the introduction. It's a little bit embarrassing, but I should talk about the bet with Errol Morris.
I knew you would clear it up. Do it.
No, there's not much clearing it up. It was more to encourage him. I said to him, you haven't finished all your projects. You have given up on the cello. You have given up on your writing project on mass murderers. You have given up on your academic career. So this is something you have to finish. And I know you will finish it because I'm going to eat my shoes that I'm wearing right now. I remember it was Clark's desert boots that I wore. They were not very tasty, but you can cook them and eat them. It's okay. So, and
you looked that up in advance before you made the bet? You were like, this is an edible shoe.
I knew you could eat leather. You can eat your belt. You can eat your briefcase. You can
I ate my belt
shoes.
a long time ago, sure. I assure you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, real quick, before we dive into the actual movie itself, there's a story that I always loved as well. Did you steal your first film camera? Is that true?
Well, I wouldn't call it like that. There was a predecessor of the Munich Film School, and they had equipment, and they were supposed to hand it out for free for young aspiring filmmakers. And I asked for and I submitted my request for projects. They never gave me any camera. So one day I was in there, and in the shelves I had cameras, of course at that time celluloid, 35 millimeter celluloid. And I realized that all of a sudden nobody was in the room. So I looked and I grabbed one, unobtrusively grabbed one, walked out, and I actually meant to return it after I was done filming in a week or so. But then I was doing almost immediately my next film, and I thought, and I listened a little bit around. They hadn't even noticed that the camera was missing. Probably until today, they didn't notice that a camera was missing. So I thought this was more like expropriation, and I had a natural right for using this camera. So I used.
How very German of you, man! That was.
Yeah, no, it was a feeling of justice, and I usurped it, and I just did it. It was. I never felt like theft, and today you don't need to steal a camera because you can shoot a feature film on your cell phone, and you can edit it on your laptop.
Right.
So it's that simple, and the equipment has become so available that you don't have to do a drastic step like just taking a camera.
Now, you've seen over the course, how many years you've been a filmmaker? How many decades at this point?
Since I'm 19, I made my first film when I was 19. So it's quite a few decades. But it's an interesting question because, of course, there are colleagues here. And normally the life of a filmmaker is fairly short. Normally, statistically speaking, in film history, it's around 15 years.
Is that right?
And then you are pretty much out. And it has hit the strongest of the strong, like David Ward Griffith, who made films between 1914 and 1927 or so. And then he was out. of business. Nobody financed his films anymore, and I think he earned a living as a land surveyor. I just saw a photo out there in the hallway of Orson Welles. Orson Welles didn't have. I mean, he was a very early prodigy, and he was as strong as any animal in this profession could be, but he didn't last very long because he didn't have a long-term strategy. He would, for example, waste the entire budget in pre-production, and then the studios stopped him in his tracks, and he continued somehow to make some films, but he was literally taken out, and such a strong figure. And normally they don't last very long. And how do you do it? For example, in contracts with production companies, I would have a clause, an unusual clause, that I was allowed to look into the daily cash flow, because and I would sit every evening after shooting for 20, 30 minutes with the accountant and the line producer and look at the cash flow, because that's where you see the problems arising first. That's where you really see it. And you can go to the bottom of it. Why did we spend the entire budget for costumes before we even have started? And there's so and so many, and it turns out they made for every single person who walks past somewhere in the background had 2 suits. What happens if the suit gets spoiled or ruined or has some coffee stains on it? I said, forget about it. That person will have only 1 suit. So I put a stop to it. And my tendencies, and in 70 or so films, I've never been over budget, and 5 or 6 times now under budget. And most notably in the film Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, I brought the film back $2.6 million under budget, which is unheard of in Hollywood.
They get suspicious when you do that.
And now the producer wants to marry me. But it's part of a long-term strategy, but it's only one segment. So I'm trying to figure out how can I survive with projects where I know they are probably not going to be very popular, or it's outside the narrative forms that you normally would adopt. And Salt and Fire is a film where nothing is predictable. It starts like an action movie, and all of a sudden there's discourse, long discourses about anamorphic art and a saint under a tree. And when you walk towards the saint stretches out and becomes a landscape. Or about a talking bird that quotes Ecclesiastes. So nobody would expect that, and then nobody expects that the leading character, the woman, the scientist, all of a sudden is deliberately stranded in a salt desert together with 2 blind boys. It's outside of what the narrative structure of a Hollywood film, for example, would be. And of course, I knew from the beginning this would be an uphill battle with audiences, and it's more a project for long-term, embedded in other things that I've done before.
Let me ask you this. I just want to touch back on the financial aspect. Is that something you've been doing since the beginning, in terms of looking at the budgets and thinking about that type of career longevity at that point?
And I have learned it the hard way, because when I started out to submit projects to production companies or TV stations or whatever, I was always thrown out. Number one, I was too young, and I wasn't even fully grown up yet. I was a school child. And I knew I would never make a film unless I became my own producer. Meaning, how do you become a producer? You have to have money. How do you get money? By just working. And I was still in high school, and I worked the night shift as a welder in a steel factory. And it was piecework. And every hour that's passing by, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, you really are worn down, and you know the value of money. And now I make a film, 35 millimeter celluloid, and you know every second the camera is rolling is something like $5, meaning to buy the raw stock, to have it developed, to have a work print, to have, and so on. It's about $5 per second. So you really take care, and I do not shoot much. That's one of the strategies, because if you don't shoot much, number one, your time of shooting is very limited, and it's a major factor for budget increase or decrease. And I do not shoot much coverage, and it makes everybody nervous on a set. You didn't shoot coverage. I said I covered everything I want to see on the screen. I see it very clearly. I do not need all these hours and hours and hours and shot after shot after shot from all variety of angles. You see, that means delegating the problems into post-production, kicking the can down the road. You better take your decisions while you're shooting. And for a film, in this case a documentary, Into the Abyss, about capital punishment, and one of the protagonists in the film was executed 8 days later. In fact, the film is almost 2 hours long, but I shot 6 hours of footage. And anyone else would have shot 450 hours. Easily. So it was very short filming, very short editing, and the film was right there. So, and I know how to be economical with my approach, with the coverage, with making things doable. People always believe I'm the man who doesn't take no for an answer. That's wrong. I do take no for an answer. And for example, in Grizzly Man, when I was supposed to have a tape recording of the death of Timothy Treadwell, the bear advocate, and his girlfriend, which was actually caught on tape, the moment where a bear attacked them and killed them and ate them. And I didn't include it in the film. There was a borderline, and it was clear I wouldn't include it in the film. And I otherwise I do the doable.
You said something a second ago that gave me pause. Do they still at this point go, hey, you're not getting enough coverage at this point in your career?
Yes. I mean, the last time really when it happened was when I did Bad Lieutenant, because most of the crew, practically all the crew was an American crew from Hollywood and from Louisiana. And my days of shooting ended at 3:30, 4 o'clock, but I could have extended it until 7 p.m. from there on overtime. In my entire life, I had not one single hour of overtime, not one. And I said, it's only 3 o'clock, we finished here. Can we rush over to the next location and do tomorrow's work? No, we couldn't, because the location wasn't ready and the actor for that location hadn't arrived yet. He was coming in at night by plane. So I said, let's call it a wrap. And all of a sudden I hear this grumbling and mumbling, yeah, but what about coverage? Second day, the same thing, coverage. And I didn't even know what it meant. And I took my assistant director to the side, a wonderful man, and I said to him, coverage, what do they mean? I know what it means with my car insurance. If I cause an accident and you are my passenger and you are injured, the insurance would cover you up to, I don't know, $50,000 in bodily damage. So,
you're like a walking Wikipedia, man. You're amazing.
And what does it mean, coverage? And he said, yeah, I mean a shot, very close up of the eyes, and a shot from above, and a shot here, and maybe circling around. I said, no, this is completely crazy. I have really everything. And on the third day, became really vociferous. Yes, we haven't filmed coverage. So Nicolas Cage said, "Hey, team, together, come here. Is there an apple box?" They put an apple box. He steps up and he says, "Come close." And he said, "Finally, a director who knows what he's doing," and left. And that was that. That silenced the call for coverage. And in this film, I couldn't do much coverage, even if I wanted, because I had only 16 days of shooting for the film, a variety of locations and unknowns, like 2 young boys who were almost blind and only spoke Quechua and some Spanish. So you never know what's happening with them. Although sometimes the unknown was really nice to do, because when they play this board game and they throw the dice, I took the boys aside and I whispered to them, cheat. But she didn't know that they were going to cheat. And she starts to notice they are cheating. And at the end, she does, and she was completely left alone with the situation, and she does it in a very sweet way. She keeps tickling them, and that's a very human, very beautiful moment. So you do certain things as a director that will trigger something, hopefully. You only get it if you have real good actors who are confident and do not step out of the role. Yeah, she didn't turn to me and said, "They are cheating. What should I do?" No, she
which would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Caught, they're fucking cheating.
Yeah, sure. You have to have actors who know the very basics, and I try to be hidden somewhere next to her, almost behind the camera. So sometimes with the boys, I would line up the team pretty much behind the camera so that they couldn't listen and look around. Can anybody help us? No, they were left alone here in this scene.
That's sounds cruel but effective.
No, it's not cruel. It's a normal work procedure. And the boys knew I was only 15 feet or 10 feet away from them, and if anything happened, I would instantly be available. One of them desperately needed to pee, and I noticed, and I stopped everything, and I said, "Come on, I know what's happening. Let's go behind this rock. And when you are done, you call me and I take you out." So
you were a full service director right there, man.
Well, that's part. Lion taming is part of it.
Part of the job.
What we are doing.
What you're doing, sir.
No, what directors are doing. Lion taming of the unexpected.
Yeah. Is that how you look at it?
I do believe that in the studio system, much, although every step is somehow pre-planned, much is happening that goes into the realm of the completely unexpected. It does happen, sure.
What does happen?
The unexpected.
On set.
On a set inside of a studio. So you and that's the nature of of the work that we are doing.
The sequence in the film, in the cloister, like where he's talking about the image in the book and dreaming of going there, and then you actually, presumably you went there, you didn't duplicate that.
No, but it's one of the very rare moments where things were done digitally. That means a series of photographs connecting, and then a virtual sort of space, because I didn't know exactly how long, what would be explained, and the speed, and that I didn't know until very late that the traveling shot should look at the saint and come closer and move like 90 degrees, a different angle. But in the landscape that stretched out now, you see the Strait of Messina and not very large, the saint surfing on his coat across to Sicily. And I wanted to have that included. And so I created the movement in a way that it coincides with the explanation of the dialogue and ends up with the saint surfing to Sicily. Because the story is just too good.
Amazing. Is that something you picked up? I've read once that you were Catholic for a minute. Did you pick that up during that period?
No, not during my brief career as a Catholic. But of course, I've always been fascinated by stories of saints, and I've been fascinated by what's going on in the Vatican. For example, it's a beautiful sort of area where it's very fascinating and rewarding to take a good look at it. What's going on there? What are the intrigues? What are the articles of faith? How does it shift over time? How does the church behave in extraordinary situations? And sometimes they do the extraordinary good, and sometimes they don't. For example, Catholic Church mostly or widely ignored the rising Nazis and the Nazi atrocities, and the Church kept silent. So that's alarming. But other things that are not that alarming, and so I like to look in and listen into it. For example, I would read the speeches of the predecessor of Franciscus, Benedict, the Bavarian Pope, and what's really fascinating, he was in Auschwitz, and in a speech that is not longer than 10-12 minutes, three times in the speech he asks, at that time of the genocide, of the unspeakable, where was God then? Three times in the course of this short speech. And I have the feeling that he doubted God. The first pope who somehow admitted that he doubted God. Where was God then? And I found it most fascinating. And I told to some of my friends, he cannot stay pope. This is a pope who will resign, and he actually resigned. But I think he resigned over other things. He was a public relations disaster, as intelligent as he was, the deepest thinker on the papal see for maybe at least 300 years. A disaster in dealing with the media, a disaster dealing with his administration, a disaster in many other things. So I'd still like to look at things like that.
You could talk about anything, dude. I feel like you'd be an excellent ad-libber improv artist. People could just yell out things like the Pope, and you could do 15 minutes on the Pope.
No, I just, it's two sources. One is I have been curious all my life, and I have never learned from anyone. Everything that I know, I have learned empirically myself. I'm a self-taught, and that sticks. You see, when I'm fascinated about a speech of a pope, of course I remember it. It's not in school. You forget it within 5 days.
Right.
But when you learn it yourself, in the second source probably is that I do read. I do not see many films, but I read. And I keep telling young aspiring filmmakers, you have to read. If you don't read, you will be a filmmaker anyway, but a mediocre at best.
God, where were you 20 years ago? I could have used that information. Let me ask you this.
No, it's today in the internet age, and where you get all your information from some apps on your smartphone. It goes like from one ear in one ear, the other ear out. So
because there's a repository, so you don't really have to memorize it or learn it.
Even in academia, let's say even in classics or so, where you are supposed to read the ancient Greek and Latin writers and philosophers, even there they don't read.
Really?
It's very, very strange. I've seen it, that they have a hard time to articulate 3-4 sentences into one coherent thought. And it's because they just don't read enough.
The film that we just watched ended with the cheapest special effect you could probably pull off in movies, forced perspective. And you're talking about before, this is a movie you can't really predict where it's going. I never would have predicted the last 2 minutes of that movie were going to be as charming as they were, as Michael Shannon was eating people off a spoon and stuff like that. Was that something that comes to you while you're there on set? Was that in the book? It was based on a book?
No, well, it was in the screenplay, but I must confess, I looked into tourist photos, and I saw that many of them have done photos like that with perspectives that are not functioning as our everyday relationship to spatial reality, because you have nothing to compare. You don't know how far a person is away. And for example, when Michael Shannon has a spoon, Veronica Ferris, the actress, is not further away than like from here to this wall. So perspectives are so intense for our eyes, but of course we are deceived and misled if there are other elements there that we can somehow use for comparison, but there's no comparison. And I've seen it in tourist photos online, by the way, on the internet. As stupid as it may sound, but I, of course, concocted my own sort of things with perspectives.
It's for me, as I was watching it, I was like, wow, man, that's a true filmmaker. Somebody that's like, here's something nobody really does anymore, but is going to look fantastic. Like, I guarantee you, if a studio was making that film, which they really wouldn't, but if they were, they would build that ending on a computer, like to do the forced perspective stuff. You took advantage of things that happen naturally.
It's not really
in the
a
world.
forced perspective. It is a perspective, but it is a perspective that functions contrary to our experience in real life. Here, it's very easy to see you and gauge or have an idea about your size, because I have a carpet here and I have rows of seats, and my perspective, my brain somehow translates you into regular-sized people and not tiny as this. And it functions like this when you have a chimney sweep. They look down at people. Actually, after less than a year of working on roofs, they see a person not like seeing them like a dot and hardly anything of the body, because they see them. Their brain somehow translates them. They see them almost like I see you. Or, for example, we know that our eyes, in our retina, an image that's coming in here is inverted. So, in fact, what my retina receives here is this theater, but inverted. But my mind somehow corrects it, and you are you're upright. And I think there were tests made where people got glasses on that would invert an image, so you would see everything upside down, but within a few days a brain would correct it and you would see it against the inversion through your glasses. Against that you would see everything as we are seeing it now.
You just keep getting too deep on a very shallow man. Let me ask you this question. A career like yours, which is...
I never had a career.
Okay. A life like yours,
yeah,
full of art like yours.
Career means planning and
Good
planning the next step and what could be successful, and should I acquire the rights of a novel which is 40 weeks on the New York bestseller list or so. Now it has never happened like this. Projects have always come with great vehemence, and I'm just dealing with the one that's coming at me with the most vehemence, and I try to deal with it.
kick-started all of that? What was the first movie you saw that made you go, that's for me?
Well, I didn't see movies until I was 11. And by the way, I didn't even know that cinema even existed, because I grew up in the mountains and there was, for example, we had no running water. You had to go to the well with a bucket and hardly ever electricity, no phone. I made my first phone call at age 17, which is inconceivable today for young people. And by coincidence, a traveling projectionist came to this one classroom school. And in this class, there were 4 grades, first, second, third, fourth grades, all in one room. We were something like 26 or 28 kids and one teacher. And a projectionist showed 2 films, and I found them lousy and didn't impress me at all. and that was that. And only later, when at age 11 or 12, when I moved back to Munich, I saw films, but all the sort of B pictures, Dr. Fu Manchu, Tarzan, Zorro, and that was basically that. And I always had the feeling that I had to invent cinema. This was not really what should be done. And I had the feeling I was the inventor of cinema. Until today, by the way. It's very strange, yeah.
Really?
Because on this film, I remember the cinematographer at one point said to me, but Werner, nobody does it like that. And I said, yes, but here it's a logical moment in the story. Doesn't matter if nothing does it like that. We are here to invent cinema. So let's do it. And he understood, and we do it. We did it.
My Lord, what a pioneer you are.
Not pioneer.
Oh, good God, I can't compliment you. You won't take a compliment.
I'm just trying to be a good soldier.
Does it get hard over decades of a career having to bring people to a specific vision, to convince people, like, I know what I'm doing and I know what I want, and I don't need to do a bunch of coverage, and I don't need to make a movie like that. These are the films that I want to make. Does it get harder or easier over the course of a lifetime?
No, I think it's always about the same, and you have to be very clear, and it's comes fairly easily to me because I see an entire film as if you saw it here on the screen. And I can explain it and I can describe it very easily. For example, the opening shot in Queen of the Desert, you see her, or the first shot of the protagonist, you see Nicole Kidman only from behind for more than a minute or so. And everybody said to me, yeah, but you should move around and watch her face. No. I only allow a shot from behind it. At the end, she picks up a mirror and she looks at herself, and only then, for the first time, we see her face. So, and it was so overwhelmingly clear for me that you build up some sort of a curiosity. Who is this woman? Who is she? And being harassed by her parents, and who is she? And all of a sudden, you see the mirror image. And then she's a protagonist. So it was clear I'm not going to allow any shot into her face, not in this opening sequence. And you have to make it clear, and it comes easily to me to explain a clear vision. You have to know what you are doing. And then the second thing is from day one, you have to create a climate on the set that is very, very exciting and creative. And everybody notices from day one on, oh, this is going to be big. This was a fantastic day. The situation was lousy in Bolivia. We were at 12,000, 13,000 feet altitude. It was cold. It was salt, and we slept in a hotel that was built of salt slabs. And first night or so and morning, no running water. So you come in the morning, nobody could even brush their teeth. And so how do you cope with that? And somehow, but there was a climate, let's go out there because this is going to be beautiful, what we are going to do today. And at night, I'm sure there will be water, which actually happened. And we had a van coming and they brought mineral water onto the set. And you take care of the mineral water because it would have ruined the climate, the atmosphere, the readiness of everyone to follow what we are doing. Sometimes it's tiny things. And it has never been really hard for me to get things across. Sometimes in a very vague way. I remember Nicolas Cage said to me, Werner, I know you hate to have these endless discussions with actors about motivation and what his childhood was or whatever, and psychology and all sorts of things. And he said to me, but I have one question. Why is the bad lieutenant so bad? Is it his drug habits? Is it his chaotic relationship with a girlfriend? Is it the dysfunctional family where he comes from? Or is it the Hurricane Katrina, for example, the corruption in the police force? And I said, no, don't rattle on. There's such a thing like the bliss of evil. Go for it. And he went for it.
Nice.
So that's how we work as directors.
You like in this film and just in Fitzcarraldo and a lot of your work, you also take advantage of the natural landscape. You feature the world, and they're beautiful, what I assume are drone shots of
sure, yes, and traveling shots out from a car window. So I'm good at landscapes, and I like to not just to direct actors. I somehow in a way direct and stylize landscapes, and I love to direct animals as well.
Really?
I think there are always very good animals in my movies. I think we have to finish here.
Are they waving? Oh, is that it? I'm sorry, I got lost.
Thank you very much.
Oh my God, thank you. The honor has been all mine. Give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for Werner Herzog.
Thank you. I hope we didn't go too much over time. I think there's a limit for the recordings here. Thank you very much and good night.
Give it up for Werner, man. Thanks for coming out, folks. Go make a movie this year. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. You can check out past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts, or on our website at dga.org/podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.